Yoga-Vāsiṣṭha.
Chapter 23. Vicissitudes of Times. 1. Men of little understandings are found to fall into grave errors in this pit of the world, by their much idle talk, ever doubting skepticism, and schisms, in religion. 2. Good people can have no more confidence in the network of their ribs, than little children may have a liking for fruits reflected in a mirror. 3. Time is a rat that cuts off the threads of all thoughts, prospects, which men may entertain here about the contemptible pleasures of this world. 4. There is nothing in this world which the all-devouring time will spare. He devours all things as the submarine fire consumes the overflowing sea. 5. Time is the sovereign lord of all, and equally terrible to all things. He is ever ready to devour all visible beings. 6. Time as master of all, spares not even the greatest of us for a moment. He swallows the universe within himself, whence he is known as the universal soul. 7. Time pervades all things, but has no perceptible feature of his own, except that he is imperfectly known by the names of years, ages and kalpas, millenniums. 8. All that was fair and good, and as great as the Mount of Mayu, have gone down in the womb of eternity, as the snakes are gorged by the greedy Garuda. 9. There was no one ever so unkind, hard-hearted, cruel, harsh or miserly, whom time has not devoured. 10. Time is ever greedy although he should devour the mountains. This great gourmand is not satiated with gorging everything in all the worlds. 11. Time, like an actor, plays many parts on the stage of the world. He abstracts and kills, produces and devours, and at last destroys everything. 12. Time is incessantly picking up the seeds of all the four kinds of living beings from this unreal world, as a parrot picks up the seeds from under the cracked shell of a pomegranate. Viz. The oviparous, viviparous, vegetables and the ephemerids. 13. Time, like a wild elephant, uproots all proud living beings in this world, as the other pulls up the trees of the forest with their tusks. 14. This creation of God is like a forest, having Brahma for its foundation and its trees full of the great fruits of gods. Time commands it throughout its length and breadth. 15. Time glides along incessantly as a creeping plant, composed of years and ages as its parts, and the sable nights as black bees chasing after them. 16. Time, O sage, is the subtlest of all things. It is divided though indivisible, it is consumed though incombustible, it is perceived though imperceptible in its nature. 17. Time, like the mind, is strong enough to create and demolish anything in a trice, and its province is equally extensive with it. 18. Time is a whirlpool to men. And being accompanied with desire, his insatiable and ungovernable mistress, and delighting in illicit enjoyments, he makes them do and undo the same thing over and over again. 19. Time is prompted by his rapacity to appropriate everything to himself, from the meanest straw, dust, leaves and worms, to the greatest Indra and the Mount Mayu itself. 20. Time is the source of all malice and greediness, and the spring of all misfortunes, and intolerable fluctuations of our states. 21. As boys with their balls play about their playground, so does time in his arena of the sky, play with his two balls of the sun and moon. 22. Time, at the expiration of the Kalpa age, will dance about with a long chain of the bones of the dead hanging from his neck to the feet. 23. The gale of desolation rising from the body of this desolator of the world at the end of a Kalpa age, causes the fragments of Mount Mayu to fly about in the air like the rinds of the boa peter tree. 24. Time, then assumes his terrific form of fire, Sanskrit. Pralayani, to dissolve the world in empty space, when the gods Brahma and Indra and all others cease to exist. 25. As the sea shows himself in a continued series of waves rising and falling one after another, so it is time, that creates and dissolves the world, and appears to rise and fall in the rotation of days and nights. 26. Time, plucks the gods and demigods as ripe fruits, from their great arbor of existence, at the end of the world, to make them his food. 27. Time, resembles a large fig tree, Ficus religiosa, studded with all the worlds as its fruits, and resonant with the noise of living beings like the hissing of gnats about them. 28. Time, accompanied by action as his mate, regales himself in the garden of the world, blossoming with the moonbeams of the divine spirit. 29. As the high and huge rock supports its body upon the basis of the earth, so does time, rest itself in endless and interminable eternity. 30. Time, assumes to himself various hues of black, white and red, at night, day and midday, which serve for his vestures. 31. As the earth is the great support of hills which are fixed upon it, so is time, the support of all the innumerable ponderous worlds that constitute the universe. 32. Hundreds of great kalpa ages, of the creation and dissolution of the world, may pass away, yet there is nothing that can move eternity to pity or concern, or stop or expedite his course. It neither sets nor rises, as time. 33. Time, is never proud to think, that it is he who without the least sense of pain and labor, brings this world into play and makes it to exist. 34. Time, is like a reservoir in which the nights are as mud, the days as lotuses, and the clouds as bees. 35. As a covetous man, with worn-out broomsticks in hand, sweeps over a mountain to gather the particles of gold strewn over it, so does time, with his sweeping course of days and nights, collect in one mass of the dead all living beings in the world. 36. As a miserly man trims and lights a lamp with his own fingers, to look into his stores at each corner of the room, so does time, light the lamps of the sun and moon to look into the living beings in every nook and corner of the world. 37. As one ripens the raw fruits in sun and fire in order to devour them, so does time, ripen men by their sun and fire worship, to bring them under his jaws at last. 38. The world is a dilapidated cottage and men of parts are rare gems in it. Time, hides them in the casket of his belly, as a miser keeps his treasure in a coffer. 39. Good men are like a chaplet of gems, which, time puts on his head for a time, with fondness, and then tears and tramples it down, under his feet. 40. Strings of days, nights and stars, resembling beads and bracelets of white and black lotuses, are continually turning round the arm of time. 41. Time, as a vulture, looks upon the world as the carcass of a ram, with its mountains, seas, sky and earth as its four horns, and the stars as its drops of blood which it drinks day by day. 42. Time, destroys youth as the moon shuts the petals of the lotus. It destroys life as the lion kills the elephant. There is nothing however insignificant, that time steals not away. 43. Time, after sporting for a kalpa period in the act of killing and crushing of all living beings, comes to lose its own existence and becomes extinct in the eternity of the spirit of spirits. 44. Time, after a short rest and respite, reappears as the creator, preserver, destroyer and remembrancer of all. He shows the shapes of all things whether good or bad, keeping his own nature beyond the knowledge of all. Thus doth time expand and preserve and finally dissolve all things by way of sport. Chapter 24. Ravages of Time. 1. Rama rejoined. Time is a self-willed sportsman as a prince, who is inaccessible to dangers and whose powers are unlimited. 2. This world is as it were a forest and sporting ground of time, wherein the poor deluded worldlings are caught in his snare like bodies of wounded stags. 3. The ocean of universal deluge is a pleasure pond of time, and the submarine fires bursting therein as lotus flowers, serve to beautify the dismal scene. 4. Time makes his breakfast of this vapid and stale earth, flavored with the milk and curd of the seas of those names. 5. His wife Chandi, Hecate, with her train of mattress, furies, ranges all about this wide world as a ferocious tigress, with horrid devastation. 6. The earth with her waters is like a bowl of wine in the hand of time, dressed and flavored with all sorts of lilies and lotuses. 7. The lion with his huge body and startling mane, his loud roaring and tremendous groans, seems as a caged bird of sport in the hand of time. 8. The Mahakala, like a playful young kokla, cuckoo, appears in the figure of the blue autumnal sky, and warbling as sweet as the notes of a lute of gourd, in the music of the spheres. 9. The restless bow of death is found flinging its woeful arrows, darts of death, with ceaseless thunderclaps on all sides. 10. This world is like a forest, wherein sorrows are raging about as playful apes, and time, like a sportive prince in this forest, is now roving, now walking, now playing and now killing his game. Chapter 25. Sports of Death. 1. Time stands the foremost of all deceitful players in this world. He acts the double parts of creation and destruction, and of action and fate, utility and fatality. 2. Time has no other character but those of action and motion by which his existence is known to us, and which bind all beings, in the succession of thoughts and acts. 3. Fate is that which frustrates the necessary consequences of the acts of all created beings, as the solar heat serves to dissolve the conglomeration of snows. 4. This wide world is the stage wherein the giddy mob dance about, in their appointed times. 5. Time has a third name of a terrifying nature known as Kridanta, Fate, who in the form of a Kapalika, one holding human skulls in his hand, dances about in the world. 6. This dancing and loving Kridanta, Fate, is accompanied by his consort called Destiny, to whom he is greatly attached, as his colleague. 7. Time, as Shiva, wears on his bosom of the world the triplicate white and holy thread composed of the serpent named Anantu and the stream of Ganges, and the digit of the moon on his forehead, to measure his course, viz. their zodiacal belt, the Milky Way, and the lunar mansions. 8. The sun and the moon are the golden armlets of time, who holds in his palm the mundane world as the paltry plaything of a nosegay. 9. The firmament with its stars appears like a garment with colored spots in it. The clouds called Pushkara and Avatu are as the skirts of that garment, which are washed by time, in the waters of the universal deluge. 10. Before him dances his beloved Destiny with all her arts forever, to beguile the living that are fond of worldly enjoyments. 11. People hurry up and down to witness the dance of destiny, whose unrestrained motion keeps them at work, and causes their repeated births and deaths. 12. The people of all the worlds are studied about her person as her ornaments, and the sky stretching from the heaven of gods to the infernal regions, serves for the veil on her head. 13. Her feet are planted in the infernal regions, and the hell-pits ring at her feet like trinkets, tied by the string of evil deeds or sins, of men. 14. She is painted all over from head to foot by the god Chitragupta with ornamental marks prepared by her attendants, the deeds of men, and perfumed with the essence of those deeds. 15. She dances and reels at the nod of her husband at the end of the kalpas, and makes the mountains crack and crash at her footfalls. 16. Behind her dance the peacocks of the god Kumara. And Kala, the god of death, staring with his 3 wide open eyes, utters his hideous cries of destruction. 17. Death dances about in the form of the 5-headed Hara, with the loosened braids of hair upon him. While Destiny in the form of Gauri, and her locks adorned with mandara flowers, keeps her pace with him. 18. This Destiny in her war dance bears a capacious gourd representing her big belly, and her body is adorned with hundreds of hollow human skulls jingling like the alms pots of the gapely mendicants. 19. She has reached the sky with the emaciated skeleton of her body, and gets terrified at her all-destructive figure. 20. The skulls of the dead of various shapes adorn her body like a beautiful garland of lotuses, which keep hanging to and fro during her dance at the end of a kalpa age. 21. The horrible roaring of the giddy clouds Pushkara and Avatu at the end of the kalpa serves to represent the beating of her Damayu drum, and put to flight the heavenly choir of Tumburu. 22. As death dances along, the moon appears like his earring, and the moonbeams and stars appear like his crest made of peacock's feathers. 23. The snow-capped Himalaya appears like a circlet of bones in the upper loop of his right ear, and the Mount Mayu as a golden areola in that of the left. 24. Under their lobes are suspended the moon and the sun, as pendant earrings glittering over his cheeks. The mountain range is called the Lokloku are fastened like chains around his waist. 25. The lightnings are the bracelets and armlets of destiny, which move to and fro, as she dances along. The clouds are her wrappers that fly about her in the air. 26. Death is furnished with many weapons, as clubs, axes, missiles, spears, shovels, mallets and sharp swords, all of which are sure weapons of destruction. 27. Mundane enjoyments are no other than long ropes dropped down by the hand of death, and keeping all mankind fast bound to the world. While the great thread of infinity, Ananta, is worn by him as his wreath of flowers. 28. The belts of the 7 oceans are worn about the arms of death as his bracelets resplendent with the living sea animals, and the bright gems contained in their depths. 29. The great vortices of customs, the successions of joy and grief, the excess of pride and the darkness of passions, form the streaks of hair on his body. 30. After the end of the world, he ceases to dance, and creates anew, all things from the lowest animal that lives in the earth, to the highest Brahma and Shiva, when he resumes his dance. 31. Destiny as an actress, acts by turns her parts of creation and destruction, diversified by scenes of old age, sorrow and misery. 32. Time, repeatedly creates the worlds and their woods, with the different abodes and localities teeming with population. He forms the movable and immovable substances, establishes customs and again dissolves them, as boys make their dolls of clay and break them soon afterwards. Chapter 26. The Acts of Destiny. 1. Rama said, such being the all-destructive conduct of time, and others, as already described, what confidence, O great sage, can men like me have upon them? 2. We all remain here, O sage, as slaves sold to fate and destiny, and are deceived by their allurements as beasts of the forest. 3. This fate whose conduct is so very inhuman, is always up to devour all beings, and is incessantly throwing men into the sea of troubles. 4. He is led by his malicious attempts to inflame the mind with inordinate desires, as the fire raises its flames to burn down a habitation. 5. Destiny, the faithful and obedient wife of fate, is naturally fickle on account of her being a female, and is always bent on mischief and disturbing the patience, even of the wisest of men. 6. As the heinous serpent feeds upon the air, so does cruel death ever swallow the living. He ripens the body with old age to create his zest, and then devours all animals warm with life. 7. Death is called a relentless tyrant, having no pity even for the sick and weak, nor any regard for anyone in any state of life. 8. Everyone in this world is fond of affluence and pleasures, not knowing that these are only calculated to lead him to his ruin. 9. Life is very unsteady. Death is very cruel. Youth is very frail and fickle, and boyhood is full of dullness and insensibility. 10. Man is defiled by his worldliness, his friends are ties to the world, his enjoyments are the greatest of his diseases in life, and his avarice and ambition are the mirage that always allures him to ruin. 11. Our very senses are our enemies, before which even truth appears as falsehood. The mind is the enemy of the mind and self is the enemy of self. That is, they are all deceptive. 12. Self-esteem is stained with the name of selfishness, intelligence is blamed for its fallaciousness, our actions are attended with bad results, and our pleasures tend only to effeminacy. 13. All our desires are directed to enjoyments. Our love of truth is lost. Our women are the ensigns of vice, and all that were once so sweet, have become tasteless and vapid. 14. Things that are not real, are believed as real, and have become the cause of our pride, by hardening us in untruth, and keeping us from the light of truth. 15. My mind is at a loss to think what to do. It regrets at its increased appetite for pleasure, and for want of that self-denial, which I require. 16. My sight is dimmed by the dust of sensuality. The darkness of self-esteem prevails upon me. The purity of mind is never reached to, and truth is far off from me. 17. Life has become uncertain and death is always advancing nigh. My patience is disturbed, and there is an increased appetite for whatever is false. 18. The mind is soiled by dullness, and the body is cloyed with surfeit and ready to fall. Old age exults over the body, and sins are conspicuous at every step. 19. Youth flies fast away with all our care to preserve it. The company of the good is at a distance. The light of truth shines from nowhere. And I can have recourse to nothing in this world. 20. The mind is stupefied within itself, and its contentment has fled from it. There is no rise of enlightened sentiments in it, and meanness makes its advance to it from a distance. 21. Patience is converted into impatience. Man is liable to the states of birth and death. Good company is rare, but bad company is ever within the reach of everybody. 22. All individual existences are liable to appear and disappear. All desires are chains to the world, and all worldly beings are ever seen to be led away perforce where nobody can tell. 23. What reliance can there be on human life, when the points of the compass become indistinct and indiscernible? When the countries and places change their positions and names, and when mountains even are liable to be dilapidated. 24. What reliance can there be on man, when the heavens are swallowed in infinity, when this world is absorbed in nothingness, and the very earth loses her stability? 25. What reliance can there be on men like ourselves, when the very seas are liable to be dried up, when the stars are doomed to fade away and disappear, and when the most perfect of beings are liable to dissolution? 26. What reliance can there be on men like us, when even the demigods are liable to destruction, when the polar star is known to change its place, and when the immortal gods are doomed to mortality? 27. What reliance can there be on men like us, when Indra is doomed to be defeated by demons? When even death is hindered from his aim, and when the current air ceases to breathe? 28. What reliance can there be on men like us, when the very moon is to vanish with the sky, when the very sun is to be split into pieces, and when fire itself is to become frigid and cold? 29. What reliance can there be on men like us, when the very Hari and Brahma are to be absorbed into the Great One, and when Shiva himself is to be no more? 30. What reliance can there be on men like us, when the duration of time comes to be counted, when destiny is destined to her final destiny, and when all vacuity loses itself in infinity? 31. That which is inaudible, unspeakable, invisible, and unknowable in his real form, displays to us these wondrous worlds by some fallacy, in our conceptions. 32. No one conscious of himself, his egoism, can disown his subjection to that being, that dwells in the hearts of every one. 33. This Sun, the Lord of worlds, is impelled, by that power, to run over hills, rocks and fields, like an inert piece of stone, hurled down from a mountain and borne away by a current stream. 34. This globe of earth, the seat of all the Zuras and Asuras, and surrounded by the luminous sphere in the manner of a walnut covered by its hard crust, subsists under his command. 35. The gods in the heavens, the men on earth and the serpents in the netherworld, are brought into existence and led to decay by his will only. 36. Karma, Cupid, that is arbitrarily powerful, and has forcibly overpowered on all the living world, has derived his unconquerable might from the Lord of worlds. 37. As the heated elephant regales the air with his spirituous exudation, so does the spring perfume the air with his profusion of flowers, unsettling the minds of men, at the will of the Almighty. 38. So are the loose glances of loving damsels directed to inflict deep wounds in the heart of man, which his best reason is unable to heal. 39. One whose best endeavor is always to do good to others, and who feels for others' woes, is really intelligent and happy under the influence of his cool judgment. 40. Who can count the number of beings resembling the waves of the ocean, and on whom death has been darting the submarine fire of destruction. 41. All mankind are deluded to entrap themselves in the snare of avarice, and to be afflicted with all evils in life, as the deer entangled in the thickets of a jungle. 42. The term of human life, in this world, is decreased in each generation in proportion to the increase of their wicked acts. The desire of fruition is as vain as the expectation of reaping fruits from a creeper growing in the sky. Yet I know not why men of reason would not understand this truth. 43. This is a day of festivity, a season of joy and a time of procession. Here are our friends, here the pleasures and here the variety of our entertainments. Thus do men of vacant minds amuse themselves with weaving the web of their desires, until they become extinct.